So, I went to PAX U this past weekend, and now that I am recovering from con crud, I wanted to highlight my top PAX picks. Obviously, it's impossible to check out everything there, but these are the systems, adventures, and extras that really caught my eye while I was out on the floor. So today, I figured that with the holidays right around the corner, my picks might make good items to put on your wish list, or hint, for other GMs and players in your life. So go get cozy, go put on your best raccoon-themed socks, and let's dive in. So obviously PAX had some big announcements like Daggerheart's first big expansion, but my focus was squarely on things I either haven't heard of or haven't had a chance to run yet, and especially things that are outside of the heroic fantasy genre. And I feel like that can sound surprising because if you watch my channel, you'll probably know that I do in fact run a ton of high heroic fantasy type games. But when I'm looking to drop dollar bills, I actually like to spend money on genres that I really enjoy, but that I'm less confident in completely riffing on. So with that in mind, my two personal winners for this weekend, the games that really got me pumped up, were Blister Critters and Triangle Agency. I was like a really big Redwall kid, so some part of me has always been drawn to games like Mouse Guard and Mouse Ritter. I do just want to be a little guy, and while I definitely do enjoy both of those games, there was always something that kind of felt like it was missing for me. And you see, I actually think both of these games are doing a great job of fulfilling that Redwall, Watership Down, that serious critter fantasy niche, but what I was really missing was that sometimes what I'm really looking for is kind of a heavy dose of silliness. I am a goofball, a child of whimsy, but also I watch way too much horror and really can't resist being a little bit dark, a little bit fucked up. I contain multitudes. So because of that, I'm really excited to run Blister Critters. I've only scanned through some of the basics and read some of the interviews with the creators, but this whole concept just lights up that little dopamine center in my brain. You play as little critters, no more than 12 inches tall, wide, or long, and you're playing in a post-human kind of apocalyptic world, and you're mutating and gaining powers. Neat. I love powers. I think this just feels like such a home run for anyone who enjoyed cartoons like Courage the Cowardly Dog, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, Earthworm Jim, The Tick, all those acid trip type cartoons. Like literally the system calls their one-shots or starting adventures pilots and their campaigns seasons. Fucking adorable. It just feels like such a great chance to mingle cute with body horror, silly with serious, and I'm just totally in love with its whole vibe. The creator was even there doing doodles for people who bought the box sets. Look at this! And it's built off of Stillfleet's grit system, so as a mechanics nerd, I'm also pretty stoked about getting to explore that a little bit more. So if you want to learn more about this one, I'm linking not only to their system, like yeah duh, but also to Dave Thaumavor's interview with the creators. Because after reading about their concept of a tapioca eldritch horror and the possibility of different critters and beasts from different continents and ecosystems, like I just feel really, really inspired by this one for some reason. I can already imagine taking players through like old backpacking camps and chalets in the wilderness as a season, maybe something in a Vegas casino, because I feel like that one would have such wild stuff, and that's an official game term by the way, but yeah, the stuff that players could create would be so wild there. I think it would just be really, really neat. So yeah, if you like little critters and you're also fun and maybe just a little messed up, I think this pick might be right up your alley. If your group loves games like Delta Green or Night's Black Agents, or just anything that feels like a paranormal investigation fever dream, I think Triangle Agency is also a very strong pick. I got to play a little one-shot of this and had a blast, but I've also heard from other creator friends that reading the GM's book of this is a trip in itself, so I'm really excited about that part. I know some people want just the facts, man, but I really like the idea of blurring fiction with how-to. I want to get that full vibe of what a creator's dreaming up, and so this is one of those games that feels like a cozy little sweater you can put on if you really like things like the X-Files, the Stanley Parable, Severance, the Office Space, the Twilight Zone, media like that. Because the premise of this game is that the players are field agents with these reality warping powers. So it really focuses a lot on kind of horror, comedy, surrealist type play. And it's also a game that's very collaborative. Players play other PCs, NPCs, instead of the GM doing all of the work, and they can rewrite history, stuff like that. So I think it's a really great game for groups who are more confident about doing stuff like that, confident in making decisions and not worrying so much about what's right versus wrong, as opposed to creating a really fun narrative together. So, fun fact, I've still never played a solo game. I've played kind of solo world building games, but never just a straight solo TTRPG. And part of this is because it's kind of overwhelming, right? There's a lot of different types of games. Like, there's ones that don't seem really that dissimilar to just kind of planning a session for your regular campaigns with random roll tables and everything, but they go all the way to ones that are more kind of choose your own adventure type narrative stories, something a lot more story focused. And honestly, I'm sure I'd like any assortment of these. All of them sound like they can be fun in their own ways. But I spent most of PAX with friend of the channel, Terran/Indestructo Boy, and he directed me towards Rune as what he recommended as kind of the one that's most like playing TTRPGs at your table. So I've started reading through it, and listen to like how much this intro slaps. Wake now, accursed engraved. Oberon lies in pieces, its realms scattered. Fate would forget it, lest you bind fate first. Like, okay. But yeah, I'm super excited to try my first solo TTRPG. I'll have a whole video out on it soon, but I'm for sure starting with Spencer Campbell of Gila RPG's Rune. But while I was there, I also picked up this horror mystery game. It's called Curios Jasper Park, and it's by Good Luck Press. And so I'm definitely like a murderino, a lover of cryptids, a connoisseur of hauntings and the abnormal. Why, yes, I did visit a very strange Ripley's Museum as a young child. Why do you ask? But I was really torn between this one and the Albrecht Manor one, and I think they're technically just GMless games meant for like one or more people, so I think you can bring other people in on this. But I feel like the descriptions for both really hit that vibe on the head. They're very enticing to me. And without playing them yet, I actually really hope they churn out more of these. I think they're just such a cool looking concept. These little investigative mystery concepts. But no matter what I do, there's always one category I spend way more on, and it might surprise you guys, because it's not dice and it's not minis, but I actually think it's one of those things that can be really, really helpful for GMs who, like me, tend to run a lot more homebrew focused games, and that's zines. I really love zines because, you know, they're not just great for playing, but also for kit bashing, for getting those brain juices flowing. And if you don't know what I mean by that statement, the kit bashing part, not the brain juice part, that's very self-explanatory, then you should go check out my video on kit bashing and using that for your campaigns. I'll link to it at the end of this video. But I think it's a really great way to think about bringing all of this inspiration that's out there into a lot of your more long-term, long-running campaigns. But because of my deep love of zines, +1 XP was such a dangerous booth for me. It was an absolute treasure trove. I went over with Terran so he could pick up Mythic Bastion land, and probably spent the next like hour and a half trying to restrain myself from buying just straight one of everything that was at that booth. So if you or anyone you know is like me and loves little indie games and interesting dungeons and hex crawls, I think a subscription to their monthly zine club would make for a really, really cool gift. And I can't cover all of them, but I'm gonna go over some of my favorite picks that I walked away with. One of the highlights of my zine haul was definitely Sherwood, which is obviously a Robin Hood inspired game. Straightforward, fun concept, all on its own, but I actually wish I had played this one before I started my Feywild campaign, especially because I have kind of this ragtag group of, kind of like town helpers that the players start off in. I think I would have really leaned heavily on this one for inspiration for kind of starting adventures at lower levels for them. Then we have the ever popular Dream Shrine, another very acid trip inspired crawl, where if the adventurers come across this old stone cottage deep in the woods and sleep upon the tempting and massive plush featherbed, they might just find themselves in a very strange place indeed, the Dream Shrine. I think it's just a really fun concept, and I really love the art for this one, so I was really excited to pick up a physical copy of this. Hinterlight is another zine that feels cool enough to play on its own, but that I'm also mining for future Feywild campaigns, absolutely taking bits and pieces of this one. In this game, you're lost lights, the remains of someone who stumbled into this Fey world and died there. But the Fey have awakened you into the court of rhyme, not out of the kindness of their hearts necessarily, but out of their desire for story. So it's all about you pulling cards and discovering the dark and twisted way that you died. So it's probably not for everyone, but if you love real Fey stories and not kind of that neo-Victorian watered down shit, I think this one sounds like an absolute hit. Not to mention, they actually have a Kickstarter going on right now that fleshes this out even more, like 120 pages worth of more. So whether you really love Gothic-inspired settings, or want a game that can be run GMless so that you also get to play, or even if you just want to incorporate more creepy Fey into your own settings by using this as a bit of a world-building tool, then this is one I think you'll want to pick up. And last but not least, how could I not pick up Grandmothership? Grandmothership! I love Mothership. I love Brindlewood Bay, and I can't imagine ever not loving a silly little game inspired by both. It even has a few starting adventures in the back. Lots of whodunit inspiration between Catastrophe at Camp Conifer, which takes place at a futuristic space camp, and the Not So Love Boat that takes place on a cruise liner for singles. I think elderly matchmaking events are kind of one of my favorite tropes to bring up in games. I think they're really fun and cute, so this one definitely scratches a particular itch for me. I'm also a GM who really loves player-facing extras. If you've watched my Campaign Building 101 series, you probably won't be so surprised by me saying that. I really love putting more creative options into my players' hands, maybe even into their mage hands, to see what kind of cool ideas they come up with. So how cute is this Fantastical Feline supplement by Mage Hand Press? I love pets in real life and D&D as a former dog trainer and as a cat lover. I love coming up with weird options for familiars and interesting choices for druids to wild shape into. So I could not resist this one. All of it is very Fey-coded, even the non-Fey things. And it actually gave me a lot of really good ideas for more low-level adventures for my players the next time I bring them through a Feywild campaign. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So a lot of you said you were interested in hearing more about what it's like to run games at conventions. So I'm definitely working on a video about that for you guys. And comment below to tell me what games and supplements you're really excited about playing into the new year. I'd love to hear about them and add them to my list, my very long list. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe, and then check out my videos on kit bashing your campaigns and my World Building 101 playlist. Bye!